Mike Tomlin was like really, really sweaty in an interview, and people were idiots thinking, "Oh, look how nervous he is answering these questions." I think they were like asking something about Aaron Rodgers or something. It's like, bro, it's 115 degrees in there, and he's a normal adult man. He's gonna be sweaty. Like, stop trying to make this something that it's not.
And or get the man a towel. Like there's something around there. Just help the man out.
It's America. We accept and we love air conditioning. One of our great benefits. All right, here's the photo of the coaches. Right here, you got Sean McVay in the middle, looking swagged out next to Andy Reid with the Hawaiian shirt, and then our favorite boy, the Philadelphia Eagles, Nick Sirianni. What is that outfit? Are those cargo shorts for Nick Sirianni?
They're back in, man. 90s are back.
Cargo shorts should have never gone out. Those are efficient, they're functional, and
you are literally Dwight Schrute.
Okay, you're just saying that because I'm in Germany and he has German heritage, so I take a great umbrage with that.
Nick wears his cell phone strapped to his waistband.
Yeah, not yet, but if I'm hoping to become that cool and that functional. All right, here's the big thing coming out of one of the big things coming out of this annual meeting with the coaches and the GMs and the owners. It's the Tush Push, all right? And here is what we've got. This is from Albert Breer. He does a lot of NFL reporting. And Philadelphia GM Howie Roseman defends the Tush Push, defending the play, asking the room for the injury data, because a lot of people are trying to ban the play, and there are different reasons for it. Some are saying that it's an aesthetic reason, that this looks too much like rugby. This doesn't look like football. And then some are saying we need to ban it due to the possible injury risks. However, as you see right here, there currently is no injury data associated with the Tush Push. There haven't been any injuries right here. But some people are saying that they're just by the angle of the posture of the players on this play, that it's very, very risky and that they should be preemptive and ban it. I think there's a really interesting conversation to be had around this entire thing, and also just what the philosophy of the NFL should be on this. So let me just get both of your guys' opening stances on the Tush Push. Should we ban it? Should we not?
I mean, right off the bat, no, absolutely not. One, because it is reminiscent of throwback rugby days that football came out of. So I have an affinity for that. But at the same time, making a decision based off of a lack of data and the perception of potential injury is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Every single play in football can be said to have injury risk. So why don't we actually just get rid of the sport at this point if you're really going to make decisions based off of the potential risk or injury? What was surprising was the vote was 16-16 in deciding to get rid of this or not to. And they need 8 more in order for this to actually be concretized and solidified and move forward. But at the same time, I am wildly surprised to see 16 owners on board with this.
Okay, so that's Scott's opening statement. Mike, what's your opening statement?
Okay, I kind of agree with getting rid of it. I don't like, it's messy and it does look like rugby, and I don't think that's a great thing. Okay, football's the separate entity, and part of the beauty of goal line plays is seeing the strength and the will of the ball carrier versus a linebacker. You know, that one-on-one on the goal line thing, and everyone's resulting to the Tush Push. Okay, and it's kind of eradicating a little bit of that. It's just it's boring to watch on the goal line. It's a mess. You don't know.
Right.
Those touchdowns are nobody knows what happens, so you pull everybody off. You know,
right?
It's just a little messy, and it looks like rugby. I am not a fan of it.
Not a fan of rugby, and that is a direct shot at Scott, who is over the moon about rugby. And Scott is advocating with a sign on the street corner, "Make football rugby again."
Yes.
Okay. So you talked about some of the teams who are pushing for 16-16 tie, and they did. They ended up punting this to May, and so that is when they'll end up making the decision. Look, this is a funny tweet here of which teams want to ban the Tush Push. I think the Packers, was it the Packers that first brought it to light, okay? And here are the other teams. They're all on the side of banning the Tush Push. All teams that unfortunately lost to the Eagles this year. Packers, the Rams, Commanders, and the Bills. So we've got this. It's funny to look at like which teams are against it. Here is Sean McDermott. He says his argument here that they should be proactive on banning the Tush Push to prevent injuries, even if there is no data there now. It's the best way to proceed. We're going to act in a way that's best for the health and safety of the players. on one hand, I can understand that theoretically, like, just because, yeah, it is a little bit different than your traditional or typical football play. And we've learned, and players have learned how to play traditional football safer and safer every single year. Tackle with your head up, don't, put your head down, all sorts of things. And there's been some rule changes to also aid with that. But there has been no injuries for this. There have been previous rule changes, like you can't do the horse collar tackle. And I think that was
a hip drop too.
You can't do the hip drop. Okay, that's maybe a little bit different. Okay. But the horse collar tackle, that resulted directly from multiple injuries. And then I think a really prominent one was with T.O. maybe. So it was a really prominent player. And then they acted after this. They didn't act proactively. And historically, I don't think the NFL has really acted that proactively on some of these things. So I don't know if I buy the injury argument. Do you guys?
Well, with the injury argument, I think it's a good thing to finally act proactively instead of just sacrificing people's bodies to make a decision. Like, for example, at Oregon State, we never did any single leg stuff, okay, in terms of our training. And we had like 15 ACL injuries one season. And then they finally go, okay, turns out we should start doing single leg stuff. Okay, you should have known that all along. You don't have to wait for all these people to get hurt to make a decision. You can see, the probability and where things are headed. Like, it's a high risk thing. And I think being proactive for the first time ever for the NFL is pretty good.
Yeah, but sorry, I was going to add. It's like I still think making a decision based off of a lack of data is a problem. If you start this, it's a slippery slope, and I know people call that a fallacy, but it's not. You can start making these proactive decisions under the guise of being, protective, and the next thing you know, you're a mile down the road, and the sport is completely different. And I mean, in regards to like that anecdote with Oregon State, I mean, that's more on the. That's not like gameplay decision or changes to the sport itself. It's like training, and yes, your strength coach probably should have known that and shifted it after the fifth guy tore his ACL. Something like sooner.
They wanted to see more data.
Yeah, but
I know that's just an analogy of proactive versus reactive.
Mike, I was going to say it was very European of you, because when I look at the two health and safety food bodies in the United States versus Europe, okay, in America, you can put whatever you want in food and drug, and if it is proven to be harmful, then you have to take it out. Whereas in Europe, they are more proactive, where you have to prove first that this chemical or drug is not harmful before you can take it to market. And so it's a very, very European perspective from you, Mike. You're really benefiting from your time in Italy and Germany.
No. Here's the difference. You make a choice every time you walk into the grocery store of what you pick and choose and eat. Okay. And then you also pick and choose how you work out, if you sauna, all this stuff to get bad things out of your body. You cannot pick and choose the rules of the football game as a player. You're in it, period.
Sure. That's different. That is different. Here are some. So Mike Vrabel is kind of on your side here, Scott, saying there's a lot of plays that are hard to defend. I don't think you can get rid of them every time it becomes tough to stop it. Like Lamar Jackson shouldn't be able to run with the football anymore. How about making that rule? Because it's hard to defend. That's a little bit of an extreme example there, because like I said, it's a little bit hard. I don't know if it's so cut and dry here, because the NFL has made some of these rule changes for plays that were hard. For example, who's the Mel Blount rule in 1970s, which basically he was a DB, played for the Steelers, and it was very, very physical. And they changed the rule of how DBs could defend and how physical they would be with wide receivers. And this actually completely changed the game. It really opened up the passing game after that, because you couldn't hit wide receivers past 5 yards down the field, what have you. It became the quarterback era, and then we started to see more quarterback stars. So some of these rule changes can really, really change the game. But with something like the tush push, I don't know. It feels very isolated. It's a very specific situation.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that the reaction is what it is right here, and people want to just get rid of it. It hasn't. Look, the quarterback sneak has been around for forever, since football's been here. This is just the next evolution of it, sure. And it's not as though no one's ever gone behind the quarterback and shoved them forward before. So, like, I'm surprised that the reaction is what it is. And And to be honest, it's inconsistent because even when you saw like the Wildcat offense in the early 2010s start cropping up and becoming prominent, it was very difficult to stop. Defenses didn't know how to do it.
Right.
But over time, nobody was chirping that needed to be removed. Nobody was chirping that needed to be extracted from the game. They just got to work. Defensive coordinators figured out how to stop it from strategy, angles, so on and so forth. So like the element of this is like, I think they're starting a bad precedent because if they remove the tush push, one, how do you define that? How do you differentiate that from an actual QB sneak, which is a legitimate play? This is just a different type of the same play. Yep. So like, I think it's just going to start getting way too granular, and for them to determine what is and isn't a tush push, I think is going to be very, very hard. And it's only going to create pauses in the game, which people are already annoyed with. Because you're going to have to go to review. You're going to have to see, was this guy approaching from an angle? Did he touch the hip of the quarterback or do anything like that? I think this is just a bad route to go down. And I also agree, obviously, with Vrabel. Like, this is going to become absurd when you're starting to remove. There's a difference between technique and removing a play. Like, this is a valid play within the rules and confines of football. And it's also reminiscent of football, of a play that has been a part of it from the beginning. So it's just, I think this is a bad move. It's a bad precedent to set, especially when you have zero data, because you can always hide behind the safety of the player, right? And you can make a decision there, and it's hard to argue against that. But when you don't even have that to make your argument, this is a nothing burger.
Yeah, I think that there's oftentimes a lot of hypocrisy when the NFL talks about player safety and stuff like this, because, okay, if we really, really cared, you'd probably get rid of Thursday night games, which a lot of players have been outspoken about.
Yeah, or you wouldn't expand 18 games. Like, what are we talking about here, guys?
It does feel like a lot of times just a distraction, a red herring. Oh, this is all for player safety. And going back to what you said about the Wildcat offense, it's like, yeah, that was kind of like a gimmicky little wrinkle in offensive football. And guess what? Defenses figured it out, I think, basically the next season or season and a half. And now that kind of stuff no longer works in the NFL. Additionally, some other teams have tried this. The reason we're having this conversation is simply because the Eagles are actually so good at it. And it's due to a lot of factors. Like, they train it. They have a quarterback who can squat like 600 pounds. Like, they get all the angles right. Every team can try this. So it's not it's not unfair, right? In any manner at all. So it's a little bit of a frustrating conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can, like, any team can learn the technique, practice this to the same degree, get down. It's like all of these guys are insane athletes. So like, to say that the Philadelphia Eagles have some guys that can only do it is disingenuous. And even other teams who may be trying to do this, doesn't necessarily mean you have to have your quarterback under center to do this. You could throw a tight end there who also squats 600, 700 pounds or something like that.
Didn't the team try that? Didn't somebody try that? Didn't the Chiefs try that?
Yes. It was definitely another team. I don't remember which it was, but this doesn't have to be a cut and dry quarterback sneak. It can just be an offensive play that you utilize however frequently you want to.
Here, let me just be devil's advocate just for a second. What we don't like in football is when things become automatic. And the reason that there's even some validity to this conversation is because, at least for the Eagles this season, it was damn near automatic. I don't know the exact data. I wish we could pull it up right now of how many times they went for it with the tush push, how many times they converted. But we don't like automatic. The NFL doesn't like automatic. That's why they changed, say, for example, the PAT rule and moved it back from the 2-yard line to make it like a 33-yard field goal. And that really opened up the variability on what happens on those plays. So I do understand that. We don't like when things feel automatic in football. We like to have the variability, but it's not automatic for everybody at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the Bills, like they tried this, I think it was like 4 or 5 times in their final game of the playoffs, and they didn't get any of them. So it's not like
Josh Allen sucked at his quarterback.
I know. That's why it's like, so Vrabel's point about Lamar Jackson, it actually does make sense, because that is a huge separator for him. And that's what makes him so great, is that he's so difficult to defend. So what are we going to do? Take away his advantage for the betterment of the NFL? It's not even the betterment of the NFL. It's I don't even know what their argument is. For the fan? Okay.
Very unfair of you, Scott. Very unfair. Mike, did you look up were you able to look that up of how many times the Eagles went for it versus how many times they converted?
No, did you ask me to?
Yeah.
No, I just hoped you did. It was more of a blind hope. All right, so that's what we have. They punted that to May. This is a big conversation. We shall see if Nick Sirianni and his boys can continue on with the Tush Push. Staying with the NFL, I do want to talk about the situation going on in Dallas because Micah Parsons is negotiating for his contract. And this is too long of a video right here, but this is Jerry Jones talking about how he's negotiating with Micah Parsons directly. He doesn't want to negotiate with the agent. He said in this video, I don't even know the name of the agent. Not sure if I believe that because there's somebody else on the Cowboys who they have gotten a deal with who this agent also represents the Cowboys player. So I'm not sure if I believe that exactly. So that he came out like this. And then Micah fired back with this on Twitter. We know Micah Parsons is pretty active on the internet. So he fired back because somebody said, yeah, Jerry Jones with a blatant disrespect to Micah Parsons' agent. How do you say his name? David Mulugeta.
Yeah.
And Micah Parsons came on and said, David is the best, and I will not be doing any deal without David Mulugeta involved. Like anyone with a good sense, I hired an expert for a reason. So what's your take on this with Jerry essentially trying to bypass the agent and go directly to Micah Parsons to make a deal? Mike,
He's
you're
clearly
laughing.
trying to take advantage of him. Are you kidding? This is so blatant. You don't need your agent. Let's just talk about it, man to man. He's a billionaire businessman trying to negotiate with just a lifelong athlete. There is no other way to spin this than trying to take advantage of him and input a personal relationship into the business setting where if the agent was in place, he wouldn't have that. He's doing like a Michael Scott negotiation tactic. I am refusing to speak first.
Let's change the room.
Good on Micah for standing by his agent. I think you got to go with your agent there.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the argument though that the insertion of agents, Jerry's cutting to the chase here because the insertion of agents, they're getting a cut. So essentially Jerry is paying an agent when there doesn't need to be a middleman necessarily. And there have been many instances so far in the past 5 years where players have represented themselves. Lamar Jackson being the grandest of them all. And having that man-to-man conversation, you have all these athletes talking today about being like, oh, let's have man-to-man conversations. Let's do this behind closed doors. Let's do all this kind of stuff. I actually think it's more of a respectful conversation that Jerry is trying to have with Micah, regardless of the business aspect of things. Like, I think it actually does strike a chord that's necessary because you get a lot of the players who say that owners are taking advantage of them and so on and so forth. So why not sit at the table with the owner, regardless of their business tactics and their negotiation tactics, and take that fight on yourself, represent yourself. So like, I get it. And I get why Micah would be mad because Mulugeta has gotten a lot of guys a lot of money. So he's probably like, whoa, I believe in myself to have these arguments, but I'd rather have this guy talk for me so that he could get me more money.
Yeah. Well, also Micah,
it's like going to the courtroom and saying, I don't need the lawyer. I can handle it. I took a law class in college. Like,
yeah,
I just think you need to have the expert there. If he wants to be in the room with the agent, if Jerry wants that, but I don't think he should be in these negotiations without his agent. It's like you're just trying to represent yourself without a lawyer, and you're going to oversee things. You don't have the experience. And I just think you're setting yourself up to be taken advantage of. There is a respect for doing it face to face, but
is the agent not taking advantage of the player? He's doing absolutely nothing to garner the same sort of paycheck, and he's taking advantage of the players.
I don't know if you could
say
in
order to get paid himself. A place for agents. There's absolutely
nothing.
Sure. I agree. But like, you can make the same argument that there are agents, there are absolute asshole agents out there that take advantage of of the people they represent in order 100%, to get
100%. But that's the same thing with any job anywhere.
Can I say something for one second? This is a little bit different because the Micah Parsons wants his agent involved, whereas in the Lamar Jackson situation, and also I believe Fred Warner when he negotiated his own a couple of years ago, they wanted to do that themselves. Whereas here, Micah Parsons clearly, as he stated on Twitter, wants his agent involved. So that's where it gets a little bit gray. I mean, he's trying to position himself and probably will position himself to be now, as we've seen every single week, there's a newest, highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. And Micah Parsons is now posturing to try and become that. Do you think he deserves it?
I think that's a hard leg to stand on for him just because he's as young as he is. I think he's an incredible player. And if he had 5 more years under his belt of producing the way he's been producing, absolutely. But that I don't think necessarily he should garner the same sort of paycheck that Myles Garrett just did, because Myles happens to be older, has happened to be doing this for longer. So there's more credence to that deal being made, even though I think it's wild. Like, I think Micah in the future absolutely will garner that paycheck. Does he need to be that guy right now? It's arguable.
Okay, speaking of Haslam, last thing on the NFL, guys. And it's contractually I'm obligated to bring up Browns stuff. But actually, this is kind of a little bit of a positive, I guess, as the owners, the Haslams, have acknowledged that the team is still recovering from a big swing and a miss on Deshaun Watson, having paid him $230 million fully guaranteed dollars and traded first 3 round picks for him. And I want to add a little bit of insult to injury here. He has played 19 games for the Browns, and it's very likely he won't play anymore or be a starter for anymore. I think he won 9 of those, maybe 10. That means he essentially was paid $23 million per win. This man, his agent, hey, shout out to agents right here for this team. Mike, I
don't think he could have negotiated that.
Well, you're on to something. Scott, as our resident Browns fan,
you know who his agent is?
Who?
David Mulligetta.
Really?
And this is precisely why Micah wants him in the conversation, because Mulligetta has gotten guys paid.
Wow. Okay.
That's the only reason.
Maybe this whole thing is because Jerry's afraid to negotiate with Mulligetta because he's real good.
That's you know what? Jerry is.
We don't need that guy. We can settle this.
Guy?
You me.
Yeah,
but he's also saying, like, you talk about him being a savvy businessman. He's like, why do I need to play a middleman? Why do I need to pay a middleman? Like, if I guarantee all this money, a cut 5, 10%, whatever the deal is with Mulligetta, is going straight into that guy's pocket.
I'm slightly worried that you are changing the subject from the Browns paying back to the agent conversation. I would like to focus on the Browns and the Deshaun Watson situation.
Well, I wish Haslam took the approach that Jerry Jones is trying right now and avoided Mulligetta, because this was a decades-long poor decision. Better late than never, yeah, admitting to you're wrong. But, buddy, you destroyed your own organization, made a stupid decision. Let's move on. I have no other words.
All right, let's move on. This is interesting here because we've been talking about the NCAA basketball, college sports, and players making money. So this is interesting. Women's basketball. So Olivia Miles from Notre Dame, Scott, can make far more money by staying in college, probably over $500,000, than going to the WNBA and making that $78K rookie salary. It's no surprise that she's staying in college. This is John Canzano from Oregon, actually. He says he's more curious about why she's in the transfer portal. Top money is available in Notre Dame, but she's out. This is super interesting, and I'm wondering if we are going to, because of this landscape, if we are going to see, and we kind of already are, more and more college athletes find a way to get 6th, 7th, 8th years of eligibility, because aside from like top level superstars, like who are going to make 0.001% top level money in their league, staying in college might be the better option for a lot of athletes. What are your thoughts on this?
Just follow the money, especially if you're going. I think giving these athletes, I think it's fine giving these athletes opportunities to return for 7th, 8th years, because in the past, I mean, you get one shot at sports. It's the only life pursuit where there's a diminishing window and you can never go back. Literally the only life pursuit sports is. Any other life pursuit, you can regroup and go back and try again any place. So I think it's good that you give these college athletes these extended years, because in the past, if you had a string of bad injuries, your career is done, over with, no matter what. And it's things that are out of your control. And I think it's great that people get these waivers and extra eligibility to fully ring out the one thing in life that is a one-shot opportunity.
That is an interesting point. Is there anything else we can think of that?
No, there's nothing. I've thought of this. So there's nothing else in life that is a diminishing window where you get one shot. That's why sports, you give it everything you have, and you throw everything at it, because everything after that, you get multiple tries.
Well, there's some other domains, I think, where your mental acuity diminishes, and you have a prime also in that for a lot of things. Also, you enter your prime in different. This is what you enter. I saw a graphic. I wish I had it, of where you enter your prime for different types of sports or competition. And obviously, like with fast twitch, muscle fiber stuff, the sports that we like to talk about, it's in your 20s. But then, like in your 30s, comes, I think, long distance sprinting, and then goes all the way up. It was for Olympic sports, and it's like in your 60s and 70s is where your shooting ability and accuracy is priming. I might be wrong on that, but it was an interesting graphic. I would like to try and find it. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else in life where there's just one window. You might be right, Mike.
I mean, having children.
Right.
So that's
okay. That's good.
So,
that's good.
Yeah, biological clocks are
on
real.
The female side.
Yeah. But even on the male side, it does diminish to a certain degree. All that aside, sticking to the conversation at hand, I would say, there's an element of truth in there, Mikey, that I actually haven't really thought about. But at the same time, to a certain extent, while that may be unfair, should you have a string of injuries and everything like that, it's the same sort of approach that we laud and applaud in athletics. It's like life isn't fair, competition isn't fair to a certain degree outside of the rules of the game that you're playing, right? So like some people are more athletic than you, some people are stronger than you, some people have abilities that you do not, and that's just part of the unfairness of things. And when everyone is experiencing a certain level of unfairness, it's actually as fair as it can get, because you can't pick and choose. It's randomized. It's all based off of like genetics and capability and so on and so forth. And then you add the determination factor of things like, can you get back, and all that kind of stuff. So there are a whole lot of elements into this. But going to to Nick's point about there being a prime and developmental stage of each athlete, I think it's actually a massive disservice for a lot of people when you have an 8-year dude who may have had struggles with injuries and everything like that, still trying to play. He's 24, going up against sometimes 17-year-olds. And like, to what degree is it wildly unfair for that 17-year-old who is trying to build his life and his foundation and his career, when that guy who, yes, he had an unfortunate go, but he has all the opportunity to take that hopefully good academic career that he had at the university and go into other things in life. Like, there's a certain point and a certain cutoff that you have to say, when have you had your fair shot? And yes, you may have had a bad stroke of luck throughout that shot. When is that cutoff? And when do you start looking to the people who are coming up, and how is that affecting them? And that's just going to be a domino effect continuing into the future or down the line that you have to also take into consideration.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, but also, could you not make the same argument like in professional sports? Like, you've got 20-year-olds playing against 35-year-olds.
Yeah, but they've had developmental time though. I think college, from high school to college, is a massive jump. And when you've already proven yourself to be of a professional caliber player, you're of a certain degree, and there's expectations, and your capabilities are much higher than, say, a high schooler who's coming up and needing to develop in that environment first. So I think it's not quite apples to apples, though I take what you're saying.
Okay. The thing with that is, in football especially, you're always going against people who are freaks and are different athletic and genetic makeup than you. Like, I don't think someone being a couple years older is that much of a detriment. Like, having a sprinkling of people who are a few years older. We played Utah, every year, and that was a roster full of 26 and 27-year-olds. Mormons, and nobody says boo. Okay, they were so good and so scary. We just got to deal with it. It was a challenge. It made us better. But I think in football especially, like, there is such a disparity in terms of people's development and size, and that's part of the game, part of the beauty of football. And I don't think that having that sprinkling of people who are given a couple more years, because it's a pretty small minority. It's shocking when you see it. Oh, this guy's 7th or 8th year in college, that he gets so much attention. Right. There's not that many guys who actually are in that position.
Right, but that's where opening up the floodgates of pay now and making people want to stay beyond just like, oh, I had 4 ACL tears, and be like, no, you know what? There are rules we can work with here, and I could stay an extra 2 years. That's why I'm just concerned about. We talked about the number of D1 athletes in football, I believe it was specifically. There are 400 fewer guys in the league now because there are 400 more guys remaining on rosters that should otherwise move on.
I wonder if we are going to see an influx of college agents negotiating to get more eligibility years for their clients. Interesting. Because for, like we said, just like the example there with the Notre Dame basketball girl, the money's in college. The money for her is staying in college because there's so much more eyeballs right now, for the most part, broadly speaking, on college basketball than where she would be. All right.
And
Go ahead.
not to belabor this, but I think there's more of an argument, and I would personally feel fine with that, or more so fine with that, if it weren't the current situation with college sports. Like I've been saying, okay, in the future with NIL, everything going on there, that it'll be the sport and the organization breaking off from the university, licensing the name so that there's continuity there and fandom there. In that world, this makes more sense because it's semi-pro. It can become that sort of feeder system league. And that I don't have so much of a problem with if guys stay longer than that 4-year career, 5-year career on some occasions. But if it's staying with the university, I think that's where it starts getting weird.
I am just so worried about this path to semi-pro hybrid sports. I am very scared. I am very, very scared. All right. Enough of that. Let's touch on Jokic. Okay. NBA Jokic with an iconic performance against the Timberwolves, 61 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. This is the NBA record for most points in a triple double ever. Unfortunately, they still ended up losing in double overtime to the Timberwolves. You can thank Russell Westbrook for that, for his sloppy lack of effort at the end of the game. Gosh, I would be mad if I was Jokic. Granted, Jokic does not care at all, probably. It's just he couldn't be bothered. But so this is obviously an iconic, historic performance right here. And we're seeing he's damn near averaging a triple-double right now this year.
Unbelievable.
This was going around. The truth about Nikola Jokic: if LeBron or Steph drop 61, 10, and 10 in a game this time of year, we shut down the internet and ESPN would talk about it for 2 days straight. But when Jokic does it, it's just another night. Why? Because he doesn't look the part. He's not flashy. He's not loud. Make no mistake. Skill for skill. He's already outpacing Shaq, Hakeem, and even Kareem. We're just afraid to say it. Jokic isn't just the best player in the world. He's quietly building one of the greatest legacies we've ever seen. And media is still acting like it is a fluke. So, you guys, do you think that Jokic is not getting enough credit?
I have a theory actually here.
Let's hear it. Conspiracy theory.
Okay. Because he doesn't put the NBA and himself and athletes on a pedestal, and he's so against the worshiping of athletes and the worshiping of NBA. Like, it's just a thing I do. It's just a job. The NBA doesn't want to put forward all the attention on this guy who's not fitting the narrative of the NBA and all these athletes should be worshipped. Look at these guys. Look how athletic they are. And so, like Steph or LeBron or any of these guys, they feel much better propping them up.
Is something to that, because he's just like, yeah. I mean, when they won the title the other last year or 2 years ago, was that 2 years ago? When they won the title, he had that iconic interview where they asked him, like, how do you feel? You won the NBA championship? He goes, good, job's done. I can go home now. Just like,
I don't even want to go to parade.
Yeah, I don't want to go to the parade. I just want to go back and play with my horses. I kind of like that. I kind of like that theory, Mike. Scott, where do you stand?
Yeah, it's definitely. I would agree with Mikey there. I think it's the NBA and the media seeing Jokic. He's essentially shown his colors, right? For not really caring to be in the limelight. He doesn't really want to do the dance. He's not, sort of like puppet to parade around. These numbers and the consistency that he has put forth over the years. I think he's won 3 MVPs now.
3 MVPs.
Back to back, most recently, and so on and so forth. And people are still up in arms about him just because of his style of play. It's not high flying. It's not beautiful in the conventional sense, or what we've gotten used to thinking beautiful is, but there is a throwback sort of beauty to his play that is just like too good to ignore.
He doesn't meet modern beauty standards that we've been accustomed to by all this social media era. Okay, it is just unfair for Jokic. He plays beautiful basketball in his own way, and I appreciate it. Now, there is a lot to that, and it's so interesting how kind of your brand affects how you are perceived by sports media. Because I do think that he does not get talked about in those circles enough with some of those legendary, iconic players that of the past, because he's not flashy, and it still should be something that we celebrate, though. But it's also, I think, it's not, like we've mentioned on the show before, it's not so relatable for like a lot of kids because he's just this giant guy from Europe. And so it's tough for him. Like, we're talking about guys who would be like the face of the league. And it's just like, no matter what Jokic does, it feels like he would never be the face of the league.
I would argue against that, though. I think it's actually more relatable to the majority of players and athletes, or supposed athletes out there, or kids who are trying to develop, because they can't see themselves in LeBron James. LeBron James is once in maybe 3 generations type of an athlete. Like, this guy is a freak of nature. And it was like, it's almost as though he was built in a lab. Whereas Jokic, I've said this before, he literally looks like the everyman.
Okay. You know what? That's true. There's something to that. I'm going to pull up this picture. Jokic. You know what? Never mind. I was Googling Jokic shirt off. Because he does. You're right. He's kind of like this scrubby bud. He looks like he doesn't care. I saw some tweet that just said the NBA paycheck is the easiest paycheck Jokic has ever got. Like, it's just for him, he's just going to work. So interesting to see how his legacy will be formed with his lack of flashiness, and see if he wins another MVP.
Nick, I think you were looking at this photo here, I think.
That is awesome.
Michael Scott's body. There we go. Look,
basketball is like jazz.
Okay. Okay, that is great. Did you make that?
I did. You know, I'm kind of good at Photoshop.
Wow.
Some would say an expert.
Good for you, Scott. Good for you. All right. I just got a couple random little fun things here. Scott, this is just I just came across this, and it's saying that Indiana is the Mecca of high school football, or excuse me, high school basketball. This is a state championship game in Indiana. Having lived a lot of your life in Indiana, Scott, where do you stand on this? Do you believe it is Indiana the epicenter of high school basketball, or basketball in general in the United States?
Yeah, I've never been in a place or a state or a larger community that is as obsessed with basketball as Indiana is. I mean, through and through. There's a love and I don't know, desire to watch people compete on the basketball court, in the same way that you can make the argument that there's a love and desire to watch high school football in Texas or down south. It's that same sort of energy. And like I said, every high school has that same sort of arena, that same sort of passion. Like, all the kids growing up in Indiana want to be on the varsity basketball team because it has that kind of level of draw and allure.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it comparable to Texas high school football? And also,
yeah,
why? Is it because of the movie Hoosiers? Why?
No, I wouldn't say it's because of the movie Hoosiers. I think what the movie Hoosiers did was highlight what was already there. And it brought it to prominence. And yeah, it may have like deepened that love, because they felt like they were, I hate this argument. It felt like they were represented and finally put out there, and like, oh, this love here.
Yeah, you were represented in the
nice. That person on the TV looks like me.
There you go, Scott.
No, but it's just the love was represented, right? So in the way in which you approach competition, like Gene Hackman R.I.P. did an
R.I.P.
incredible job in that movie and brought it to life in a way that was just hitting it on the head. In the same way that, I mean, I know that Rudy has a love across like Notre Dame fandom and everything like that. I think it kind of missed the mark. If you're a true Notre Dame fan, like the story is a little embellished, if not a lot embellished.
One of these days, we're going to go on a deep dive on Rudy. Okay. We're going to do a deep dive show on Scott dissecting Rudy, the movie.
Yeah.
All right.
But
there we go.
Anyway, yeah. It is, basketball is absolutely beloved by everybody there. Not that football isn't, but football definitely takes a 1B seat to basketball.
Yeah, well, IU getting in the college football playoff this year might be taking that 1A spot. All right, last thing. Speaking of football, I just wanted to know what, because I responded to this tweet and it got like a bunch of action.
It did really well.
Okay, Georgia State's, is this his head coach? Big football guy, okay? And I responded to this and I said, look, love the energy here, but if somebody was doing this to me pregame, I would be so mad and so annoyed. Where do you guys stand on this type of shit?
I'd be so furious. Pre-game? Are you kidding me? What the hell are you doing? Stop. I'm about to play a game. Waste all my energy. This is like when coaches, like youth football or high school coaches, when they're demonstrating a drill or proper technique and they grab a guy from the line, okay, and he's standing there limp, and then he tries to force all of his power to show technique. See, it's like this, and like overexert on just a kid who's standing there to show his power. It's the same type of shit.
Same type of energy. Okay, Scott, where are you at?
This would initiate an immediate uppercut on this man. Like, did you see how the level of his head? It was like all the way back, parallel to the ground.
Dude, broke his neck.
This is immediate fight. Like, I don't understand. Like, you even see there, he realizes, oh shit, I went too far. So the next two guys, he just like tapped their helmet as he walked by him. He was like, oh man, this is Woody Hayes. This is where emotion gets too much of you. I understand trying to pump up your team, but this is why I mentioned on last episode, that's why I love Kelvin Sampson, is because he's able to lead and energize dudes without necessarily going in there and boxing guys out or dunking on them or like doing anything like that. It's just like, yo, you can lead without being a psycho.
Yeah, so you don't have to try to exert your physical dominance over your players in your advanced years.
This is Michael Scott.
Yeah.
Just getting too excited.
Too pumped up.
40-point plan. 1 point per day.
I do love the energy, but don't ever do that to me before a game. Okay, there we go. Good stuff. I liked our little debate. I like head button today. I like that. It's good.
What do you think about my example of the coaches demonstrating technique on a kid in line?
Yes, that would drive.
You know what I'm talking about?
Exactly.
They love doing that. They love that. And like,
it's always like
emphasizing leverage, and
it's also
standing there limp and he shove him back.
That's terrible. But have you ever been a part of the coach doing it to like a dad that's just there helping out, just trying to dominate the dad?
Yeah.
There is some
trying to emasculate some kid's father in front of the team.
Yes, there is some very interesting culture with youth sports.
That's why I'm the head coach.
Certain coaching situations with youth sports. A lot of purity in it.
I'll give you a juice box.
Yeah. A lot of weird stuff going on. A lot of Will Ferrell juice box to Mike Ditka in that world. So okay, there we go. There we have it. Good stuff. And we will be back on Friday.